Okay, so this one is wondering what the hell is wrong with the people in California. Now, we just had the elections, and they elected a lot of who I believe to be competent people to office. People who aren't necessarily, they're Democrats. They're not they don't represent the change that I'd like to see, but they represent the lesser of two evils, and I guess that's the best we can do these days. But what I can't understand is how people manage to vote for Proposition 26. To those people who did vote for Proposition 26, why? Why? Do you have any idea where this legislation came from? This was written up and supported by oil companies and cigarette company, a cigarette company. Why on earth would you ever vote for legislation that originates from oil companies and cigarette companies? These people are our enemies. Especially after what happened in the Gulf. I can't believe that anyone would consider voting for legislation that penalizes oil companies for extracting our resources. These are our resources. This is our oil, and we can't tax them. I can't see any reason to vote for this. Proposition 26, do people in California think the deficits are just going to up and disappear magically? It's like, these initiatives are so stupid. People are so stupid. They're like, oh, we want to get rid of the deficit, but we don't want taxes at all. There's a disconnect here. If the option is raising taxes on oil companies and cigarette companies versus maybe your kid goes to school with 40 other classmates, or maybe your government pension gets cut, or maybe your kids have to take on more of the burden for their to pay for their own college, or maybe it's harder to get a community college class because there's less being offered, or maybe the environmental protections are repealed because there's not enough money in the budget to safeguard them. Would you rather have that, or would you rather have them tax oil companies and cigarette companies? This seems like a very easy decision. This is a prime way we can start recouping the deficit. And, you approve legislation, for those people who did in California, you approve legislation that prevents us from being able to tax these people. They're not going anywhere. We're not going to scare the oil companies out of California. We have oil. They want the oil. In fact, it's hugely valuable to them. Whether we tax them or not, their industry will stay here. Their jobs that they do, that they provide to this state, will stay in the state. There's no reason not to tax these companies more. And the fact that I can't even imagine, I can't think of a single reason why people would vote on this legislation. Would vote yes on this legislation. So for those people who did, I'd like to know, what is your reasoning? Why on earth did you see a commercial and not bother to even take a look at where the funding for the commercial comes from? I should stress that in general, it's probably a good idea, and every time you see a commercial for something, to see who's funding the commercial and see if you agree with those people, because I'm pretty sure if the proposition had said, do you want to help oil companies and tobacco companies maintain their high profits and continue to make it difficult for California legislators to solve the budget crisis, most people would have said, no, we don't want that. But instead, they might see some silly commercial with silly little actors paid to represent a lie, and they buy the lie, and to me that's just inexcusable. Do some homework. Don't be retarded. And I don't mean that in I mean that in the whimsical sense. You know, this is inexcusable. It doesn't take much to see that certain legislation is originating from questionable sources. And once you're aware of that, there's just no reason, no logical reason whatsoever to vote it in.